Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Women in Security Navigate Her Coffee Chat series. I'm Beth Anderson, and alongside me is my co-chair, Emma Barkley. We're thrilled you've joined us today for a relaxed, candid conversation about building successful careers in security. Our goal is to connect you with inspiring stories, practical insights, and real-world advice from leading women in the field. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive in.
Hey, Alice.
Hey, Kasia, how are you today?
Good. It's good to see you. I'm so excited about our coffee chat. We talked so much about our careers, and now we can get together today on this lovely day to talk career navigation topics, and hopefully it will help some others that are listening in. Today, we're going to go back and forth with some questions and share some of our knowledge. So I hope everybody can get a couple of nuggets from this discussion. I wanted to ask you, Alice, based on our conversations, we've had a ton of them. What was one of the smartest moves you ever made in your career, and how did it really help you advance in your career?
Yeah, so it's when you reflect back, when you're in the moment, you're not really sure you're going to navigate this perfectly. On hindsight, it worked out really, really well. So for me, it was 2008, 2009. I had just gotten let go from a job. I had been riffed out of a job that I absolutely loved. And like they let go probably about 30% of the organization. And I said to myself, I'm going to, not go back into corporate America. I'm going to put up my own shingle, but I'm going to take the summer off and really enjoy my kids and all of that, which we did. We had an absolutely fantastic summer that summer. And where we were living in New York, they're going to go back to school. And I was going to start the business then. And that's when the stock market crashed really hard on September 29th of that, like just right after the kids went back to school. And so starting a new business was not necessarily in the cards at that point. I mean, everybody was out of work and yeah, it was just really bad. So anyway, I just volunteered. I really put my mind to how can I best serve my community? I've got all of these really fabulous people around me that are also in the same kind of bind that I'm in. Not that they were looking to start their own business or anything, but these were like, really successful people that were out on the street. So I started volunteering for every organization under the sun, from my local zoning board to local arts and philanthropy. Helped put together a street festival with different vendors in the community, and through all of these different volunteer opportunities, I actually then was like working side by side with the former head of marketing for NBC, one of their divisions. I was then introduced to be on a board where I actually got to meet Phil Ramone of A&R Records, and actually then be on the same kind of like letterhead for a certain project with Clive Davis.
Wow.
So it was like all like a master class of people to be surrounded by. And once the economy turned around again, I not only had strengthened, fortified my skills and stretched my skills, but then I really had expanded my network of people who I could call on, either to tap into like, hey, how could I do this better and that type of thing, or actually land me my next gig, which is exactly what happened. So
Awesome. That's awesome.
yeah.
It makes a ton of sense, get into that volunteerism and, servant leadership, right? Really to learn things outside of your scope. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was fabulous. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
I just look back at that period of my life and it was super scary, but I'm really glad that it all worked out that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so how about you? Like, what was the best advice that you ever received about growing your career?
Well, I think it's similar. Like you're like, this is a great segue, and we didn't plan this, by the way. But the segue into the best advice I think I've ever gotten was to volunteer, like have a night job, right? And that sounds kind of weird coming from a leader. Like you need to have a day job and a night job. And at first, when he said it, I was like, what? And he said, no. He goes, the night job is really where you stretch yourself and you learn. And so what that means is, having worked in a really large company, a Fortune 100 company, it was volunteer for things outside of your scope. You'll get much more visibility, you'll learn new things, and it will really help you grow. And it truly did. Like mine was, an area that the first one was like a great place to work, team effort that we were doing in our sales organization, and we didn't have it in place. And so I was like, yeah, I'll go ahead and do it. Well, I ended up doing it with an executive, who we pulled together a team. We started creating all these great place to work events and efforts with people, and things spun out from that. And it just gave me a lot of visibility, and it helped me with people too, like learning about what different people do, what their needs were, what excites them at work, and really helps them kind of bring their all and their best to the workplace. So it was really fun. And after that, I started volunteering for jobs, strategy, marketing analysis, surveys, doing different types of things that you wouldn't think, they really weren't part of my day job. So that helped me a ton. And ever since then, I've used that advice with everybody, like volunteer things outside your scope. And
And it feeds you too in a different way that
Mhm.
your daily tasks do, right? I mean, at least for me, it's a real heart song, you
Yeah.
know, and you don't even realize that you had a certain void and all of a sudden it's filled.
Yeah. And you start to reach out with, like let's say you're in a big company with executives that you might not have otherwise had interactions with, that you're like, wow, I now can have a one-on-one with that executive or that leader who maybe I wouldn't have had a reason to because my job doesn't touch what they're doing, but now you now have this person, right? And for me, it helped me create a lot of relationships in the company. And in one case, one of the execs, he was working out at the same gym, and so we would coordinate times to go work out and go to classes. Like, hey, are you going to Tuesday? And so it really helped extend some of those relationships too.
Yeah, oh, that's great. I like that.
Yeah. So, well, I think, obviously the workplace, there's a lot of challenges in careers. There are a lot of beautiful things. There's a lot of challenges. But to me, one is, having conversations around raises or promotions. Like, what has been your experience there? And, have you dealt with kind of an awkward situation in the past? And what can we, tell me more about it. How'd you handle
Yeah. So, you don't come out of the gate, like I'm meaning, from school into the start of your career thinking about these things at all. So this is lessons learned over time. So what I would say is, and what I've learned is that to continue to treat your day job, your position as if it were an interview.
it? Mhm.
Always be mindful of your successes, and keep those up to date and at the ready. So, because you just never know. Like, I had an experience this week where my CEO came into town for a speaking engagement, and I was going to be driving just the two of us because I only have a convertible, so only two of us can fit in the car. Two of us will be in the car for like a half 30 minutes before the event and 30 minutes after the event. And so he might want to talk about nothing, except for like, basketball, or he might want to, really delve into. So being ready as if it were going to be an interview is really important, and establish those metrics. Um, that for the majority of my time, I've been in a technology space. So I think that that's really important, being numbers or very linear when it comes to a male dominated business or engineering dominated space, which high tech is both for that
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
That's really served me well. Um, the other piece I would say is that I've had an abundance mindset so that, and so this is more about attitude, so that when you have to go and ask, because every time you have to go and ask these, this has been for me, it is awkward.
Yeah.
It's I equate it to, when public speaking, and oh, I don't like public speaking. Well, who really likes public speaking? But you prepare for it, and then you get up on stage, and you've practiced, you've got those metrics in place, you're treating it as if it is an interview, and you just do your best job. So if your attitude is, if you think about it like that, if you have this abundance mindset where there's enough opportunity for everybody, and that there's successes that are available to all of us, that me asking is not going to limit the other person that's sitting next to me, that, for somebody to come back and say, well, Joe has been really doing a great job, for your thinking, that's what's going to be said. Great. I'm happy for Joe. Joe can ask whatever he wants. So,
Mhm.
but for
Yeah.
me, I'm advocating for me based on all of these facts that I'm presenting, plus, being a positive, abundant, no limitations kind of person. Um, and then the last thing I think about that would be, I've always thought about that I use the term wisdom keeper. So, um, to be somebody who can um, present themselves and have the conversation as if you can be a chief or a tribe member, so that you're not looking to step in and be grander than everybody else, that you have demonstrated over time that you have a willingness to be a follower, as well as the capabilities of being a leader. And I think that that's been very important to me, that flexibility. A lot of people don't have that as they continue to climb the ladder, that they're not looking back or looking sideways. So I would say just being spatially um, aware is a positive when you have to face that conversation.
Yeah, I think too, like for promotions, like always like being clear about what is it you're going to do in that not what you've done, but what are you going to do for them? Because I think
Right.
sometimes companies will think about like, hey, they'll publish a job that looks like a promotion, and you're like, okay, I have all these things, and most times we know women won't apply for them if you don't have everything, whereas the statistics show that men do. And I think my encouragement to women is like, just apply for, if you feel like you can do the job and you can bring a lot of value and you can do above and beyond in that job or whatever, apply. Why not? It doesn't, and the same goes for promotions, right? What is it that you are bringing to the, what can you do, what will you do in that job, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it's
the
not
learning path.
about, yeah. So yeah, so I think that's I think it's a hard conversation to have sometimes, but always be
Always.
prepared, right? So
It's never
um
been easy.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
So for you, women often struggle like with balancing their confidence and the visibility with authenticity. So what kind of strategies have helped you get through things like this?
I think like today we talk a lot. You hear it in the market about authenticity and how do you show up as your true authentic self. And one of my experiences was I had an executive coach in my old company, and it was a great benefit that I took advantage of applying to have a coach. And I was really struggling at the time with trying to keep up with my male counterparts and doing the things that they were doing, and we had a great team, but I was just constantly trying to do the things they were doing and be like them. And what I found and I learned from that coach was, he's like, Cassia, you're trying to be like them, you're not being yourself, and therefore you're failing. And that just blew me away. I was totally eyes wide open on that. It was like, wow, because I truly was. I was trying to be like the guys, and I was trying to talk like them and be like them and show up as them. And I'm Cassia, and I needed that reminder and kind of kick in the butt that you don't need to try to be like them. You need to be like you and bring yourself and bring all your knowledge and bring your impact and get results, and leadership will see that, right? And so that was, ever since then I was like, I've got to lean to my strengths. I know what my strengths are, and I lean into those, and I don't pretend that I don't have weaknesses. I do, but I'm really trying to work on and lean to my strengths first, because I think that's where I show up the best. And then where I am weak, I surround myself with people that can help me and help make me better, and I can learn from, right? And as they say, like when you're building a team, right? You don't want to build a team that everybody, is just like you, right?
Right.
And so the same thing goes I think in your friend sphere, in your professional network, surround yourself with people that can help kind of fill those weakness gaps.
Mhm.
And I really don't like using the word weakness, but it's, for lack of a better word, but they can help you, fill some of those gaps. And that's what I try to approach going forward. So
Yeah, and you probably didn't have that right from the beginning either. At least I didn't. I'm thinking of all these things that we're sharing is like this has come over time, and from making
yeah.
mistakes. Sometimes the people that had those other skill sets appeared to be a threat, and
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
not. They're truly an ally if you just kind of flip it around.
Yeah, yeah, and I was competing with them.
Yeah,
I was spending so many cycles ruminating and competing and
yeah,
like, why can't I be like that guy? And my leadership was going to them and then when it just all made a ton of sense. And as soon as I stopped doing it, I stopped feeling like I was pushing water up a hill, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
And I started realizing the things that are going to be meant for me are going to be meant for me, and people are going to recognize those strengths. And the smart ones really do pick people because they know, hey, this is your strength and we need that strength, and we're going to hire somebody over here who has this strength, and you're going to complement each other. I mean, that's the building a fantastic team 101, right?
yep. That is. It absolutely is. Yeah. For me, that abundance mindset again,
Yeah.
and grace and kindness are like two universal words that actually make all of this work a lot better.
Yeah, yeah. And I think too that kind of leads me to my question for you, which is, having a challenging manager, right? At the time I had a challenging leader who, you know, all he had was he shaped these people and that's what he wanted me to be. And again, it just wasn't me. And so in your experience, does it thinking of a challenging manager, why was it challenging? How do you deal with that? Obviously there's challenging people all over the place, but
Yeah, for
how we deal
sure.
with them is another story, right?
Yeah. So, believe it or not, we're talking about it within the context of the security industry that we're in right now, and we've said, this is male dominated. That's why we have the Women in Security Forum to begin with. So, surprisingly, my most challenging manager has been a woman, and it's in the kind of the latter part of my career, and um, right right from the very beginning, the person told me that took a very dominant stand and said that she was a people person, which was like, already like, okay, who am I dealing with? But it was still with that really big air of dominance. So I did what I do, which is I went to how I get through marathoning. I'm a marathon runner. I've run many, many races over time. And so I looked to that training to just keep my head down and do my work. And I bring that to so many different things that I have to do. It was like, I'm not I'm not going to be able to change this person's mind because, like I said, right from the jump, she was judgy and a know-it-all, and I could tell that, just from those few words that she she was not made up of the same composition, that I was made up of, and so I just kept, like I said, kept my head down and did the work, and at every turn, if I was asked to do something, I did it and I exceeded, the expectations. I suggested projects or not, and sometimes I just took on projects that I knew the team needed to be done and that would come through in a very shining way, that would ultimately serve her better, right? So she didn't even know it was coming, but again, halo effect in her direction. It's her department. So that's all cool. So then she started saying things like, "Oh, yeah, that was wonderful," and blah, 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 not necessarily still being a backstabber, but she had to admit that the team looked better.
Yeah.
And so, I really didn't, in this case of this marathon, thinking my, attitude, I didn't see the situation changing. But my boss was watching it. Our boss, there was, the gentleman that we both reported into, and she ultimately was the space in between the two of us, and he could also see all of the BS that was going on. And he came to me one day and he said, "So, like, where do you want to go with your career here?" I'm like, "What kind of question is that?" And what he said was, "Well, I'm thinking of making some changes." And I said, "Okay." And he says, "I'm actually going to promote you and demote her, so she'll be working for you."
Ah, karma.
So yes, yes, and so again, now I come back to that grace and kindness thing again, where, you could really take advantage of the situation and go, okay, now,
Yeah.
karmically, I could do all kinds same stuff that was being done to me, but that's just not my DNA, and the
Yeah.
world's super small, and so I really looked to build a team with that dynamic. She didn't last there long, like another maybe 2 months, meaning, like, she left extracted herself because she was
Yeah.
not gonna be
Yeah.
working for me because I just wasn't all that, she was so much
Yeah.
better than me. But, yeah, that's how I dealt with it, and then karmically, or
Wow.
God or
Yeah.
it took care of itself, so
Yeah. I've been fortunate to have really good leaders
ah, great.
last few years. My last 3, 4 leaders were very good, especially the last 3 at my previous company, and now I'm working for some amazing leaders as well. And I think one thing for career, is look at the leaders that you're going to report to. I think oftentimes people look at what's the pay, what's the title, what am I going to be doing, but look at the leaders that you're going to report to.
Yeah,
I think that's really important. And it's not to say, like I've always said, like there's people that have worked for me and then I've worked for them.
mhm,
And I never say never, like never say I'll never work for that person. But there are people I think that you're not going to be successful under, and try to avoid that, right? And make sure you're interviewing the leader, because if you're going to go work for them, you want to make sure they're going to be representing you in rooms that you aren't there. They're going to be helping to really elevate you and listen to you around your career and things like that. And I had a leader early on, a manager early on, who I've shared this publicly before, but he basically came to me, and it's when we used to get checks, and I age myself on that one. But he came to me and said, I had to distribute the bonuses, and the guys got more because they have stay-at-home wives, and they're only one salary, and you and your husband both work, so I figured that'd be okay. And I was blown away, but it was early in my career and I just didn't know what to say. And so as a young woman, I was like, what do I do with this? And now my older self knows exactly what I would do with it, but I can't say that here. But
okay.
I will say I moved very quickly to get away from that manager. I did
Yeah,
everything I could. I networked with other managers. I listened to what roles were open. It wasn't going to do me any good staying under that manager. And he showed me. So once someone shows you their leadership style, and you're like, whoa, your red flags go up, it's time to go to another leader. Nothing wrong. Get another manager. And I think all too many times people stay in positions like that because they feel they don't have a choice. But in many cases you do. It's just our fear telling us that we shouldn't try to go make a change. But we all deserve to, I think, work under really good leaders, and you really can thrive when you are. So
yeah,
like you
yeah,
said, you showed the compassion, and try to give her a chance, and that's a great sign of a leader that is like, hey,
yeah,
I
and
work for you and now you work for me and we're going to work together, right?
we're gonna work together, and you're kind of describing in a large corporation. For me, I got this manager put on me. Like I had a really great manager before, and then that person left, and she was growing her career, and here's this woman that just is plopped on me. And so to make the switch, you're talking about like making a switch. For me to make the switch, I would have had to leave a company that and a whole position that I actually really
Yeah.
believed in.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's a heartache too. So yeah, yeah, we've given some people some food for thoughts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know I'm like conscious of time, but I want to ask
Yeah.
you one more question. So, we have this term out there that everybody's familiar with, purpose-driven leadership. So
Yeah.
how do you sustain purpose-driven leadership and elevate others along with you as you're in the industry and you're especially as it's undergoing change? What does that
I
look like?
I think I always come back to what is the mission. Like I learned during my career, yeah, we all have goals, in our individual roles. I was reminded at a point in time in my career that, we really need to think beyond ourselves and we need to remember what our mission is. So oftentimes I will come back to what is the mission at hand, and then figure out, okay, how do we as a team go and accomplish that, because it isn't usually just a party of one and everything gets accomplished with a party of one. It's a team effort, and going back to what the mission is and everybody being behind that mission is so important. And so it's a great reminder of like understanding whether you're in a big company or a small company, what is our mission and what are we trying to accomplish, and then you having a career mission as well. What is going to make your heart sing in your career? And if it's the company you're in, great, navigate through that, develop, and you're bought into the mission. If it's not, then you can develop a plan to go where your heart is going to sing and you can follow and really buy into that mission. Oftentimes I think people, say to me, like, you sound so passionate about, the security industry. And it's like, because I am.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
believe in it. I believe in the mission of protecting people, places, and things, and that's why I think this camaraderie exists in the industry. Is it is about that mission. So for me, it did take a leader coming to me during my career, kind of mid career, and he's like, remember, it's not about your goals; it's about the mission, and how do those goals help us mm, um, hit that mission, right? And how does it help the mission? So it was really helpful for me. And I think listening to that and just being open to that feedback was really important. But yeah, that's how I do it. And but it's I think, like you said, like early career, mid career, later career, there's so many learnings across all of them. And obviously we're probably later in the career, but I'd like to pretend and say I'm mid, but
Yes. Yeah.
because I still got a lot of road to go, right?
Yeah.
But I think hopefully people could take some nuggets from this discussion. Alice and I are in the industry, obviously, part of Women in Security. We're happy to help mentor other women going through things, and questions you have about mapping out your career navigation, whatever it may be. I mean, we've probably between the two of us been there, done that, and seen it. And I even still to this day, talk to other women, including Alice, about my career and what decisions I'm making and how it's affecting me. And I do feel like you can get to that point where your career navigation decisions and how you can feel really good about it. And
For
I-
sure.
that's that's where I've hit that point in my career where I know what I want to do, where I want to do it, who I want to work with. Like I'm writing that book um, to some degree. I think we all have the capability to write those bestsellers. So,
Yes. I wouldn't have been able to do this past year without you, Cassia.
oh,
I mean, truly, we
thank you.
there was coaching that happened with my job transition, and
Yeah, yeah.
really, it made a big difference.
Yeah, I think for the folks listening, I mean, both Alice and I went through career changes in our careers, and we're out, looking. I started a consulting business. I'm starting to do that. Alice has a new role as well. I now have a new role, so there was a little bit of like, how do we go navigate this spot? Looking for a role, and I think we both, landed very well, and both have passion about what we're doing, so it can be done. And sometimes the unknown, yes, is very, very scary, but we always land where we're supposed to be, I think.
Thank you all for joining us today. I'm Emma Barkley, and this has been a Navigate Her Coffee Chat with my co-chair, Beth Anderson. We hope you found today's conversation inspiring and useful as you navigate your own path in security. Don't forget to subscribe or follow us for upcoming sessions, and feel free to reach out with feedback or topics you'd like to explore next. Until next time, keep learning, keep connecting, and keep leading.